Hi, this is Brittany Hunley. Thank you for joining me for this video, Sexual Trauma, Understanding, Impact, and Healing across the Lifespan. The goal of this video is to educate clients and their families about the types of sexual trauma, how it shows up at different life stages, and the pathways towards healing. If this is hard to hear, you are not alone. Take breaks when you need it, and if this educational video becomes overwhelming, please set it aside and reach out for support. Sexual trauma is any unwanted or coerced sexual contact or exposure that overwhelms a person's sense of safety. Your responses to this are valid, and healing is possible. There are several types of sexual trauma. There is child sexual abuse, which is the sexual abuse of a minor. Incest can be a part of that. Incest is sexual trauma that occurs within a family system. There's rape and sexual assault, which is the penetrative sexual trauma. There's sexual coercion, which is the wearing down of consent, often in relationship through nagging or bullying behaviors. There's sexual harassment and stalking. Sexual harassment can be making unwanted statements about someone's body. It can be physical contact. It can be a myriad of things, and stalking is stalking. There is partner or spousal rape, which is sexual assault that happens within a marriage. Yes, that's possible, or intimate partner violence. There's also sex trafficking and exploitation, which can include or happen with minors or adults. There's medical or birth-related sexual trauma that can happen while a person is delivering a child. And there's also institutional abuse from places like schools, churches, foster care, and within the military. Trauma is a wound to the body, the brain, the nervous system. It's not just a bad memory or a bad day. It is something that rewrites your understanding of the world and sometimes even yourself, especially if it happens when you lack community or support. It can be really difficult and greatly impact the rest of your life. Let's talk about that more. The developmental stages and impacts of sexual trauma. So on children 0 to 12 who experience sexual trauma, there are signs. There's regression, nightmares, bedwetting, sexualized behavior, or withdrawal. Trauma often occurs in families or familiar environments, which really adds to the later unpacking of the sexual trauma. As a family member or a friend of the family that was known and trusted. There's a family impact of this that often includes secrecy, denial, overprotection, or re-traumatization. But there are also healing tools if a child is able to receive psychological care during this 0 to 12 age group. Play therapy, trauma-informed family therapy, and safety planning to keep the child safe. Teenagers, ages 13 to 17, they may experience self-blame or not disclose due to peer pressure, fear, or shame. The impact of sexual trauma on this age group could include risky behaviors, substance abuse, disassociation, identity struggles. There are family dynamics at play here as well, like guilt, overprotection, and a breakdown of trust. And there's support available for children in this age group as well, if they're able to seek psychological support, and group therapy, individual counseling, art therapy, EMDR therapy, and peer support. Young adults. This is a broad group. Young adults age 18 to 30. So there are long-term consequences that might emerge for those who experience sexual trauma in this age group of young adults 18 to 30, such as intimacy issues, flashbacks, even medical issues such as vaginismus or erectile dysfunction. PTSD, eating disorders, and even addiction could surface. There might be struggles in dating, sexuality, and consent. There's a therapy focus here too of if folks are able to receive psychological care, of identity reclamation, empowerment, and embracing bodily autonomy. Adults 30 and older who experience sexual trauma, these events often show up in partnerships, parenting, in the experience of chronic pain or with emotional numbing. Emotional numbing can occur until repressed memories resurface after childbirth or from medical procedures. Healing during this age group often involves somatic work, couples therapy, and reclaiming sexuality. Families and partners of sexual trauma survivors. Vicarious trauma is real. Loved ones may feel helpless or triggered. They might need education, like videos, short informational videos like these on how to support without overstepping. Family and couples counseling may help reestablish trust and healthy boundaries. Let's talk about how sexual trauma affects the body. And so there are nervous system responses to trauma, some of which we've probably heard of, some of which are kind of new in recent years. So we've got fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flop. I believe fall is another one. These are all responses of the nervous system that we have no control over. We're just programmed with one or a few of these. Fight response is what it sounds like. When faced with trauma, the survivor becomes combative, fighting to try to escape the harm that is happening to them. Flight is somewhat similar in the terms of the desired and attempts to leave the situation, get out of it. Freeze is one of the most typical responses, especially for children. It's just what it sounds like, the inability to act. It often is accompanied by intense disassociation. Fawn is a very difficult trauma response where the person being victimized seeks to take care of or make more comfortable the person who is abusing them. It's a very hard thing to experience and live through and sort through later without self-blame or guilt. Flop and fall to me seem very similar. They might even be the same designation. And it's very similar to freeze and includes a physical inability to move. There are also common responses like disassociation. I often describe disassociation to folks who've never experienced it as that feeling that you have when you're driving from one familiar path to, or one familiar destination to another down the same path as all, and suddenly become aware that you haven't noticed any traffic lights for the last 5 or so minutes. Your brain kind of goes into autopilot while you are driving this familiar route. That's a healthy function of your brain to kind of recharge or keep some energy going. I promise you are paying attention enough to stop at a red light, but that is as close to the feeling of disassociation that someone that's never experienced it can probably relate to. Disassociation as a trauma survivor usually includes having memories that are of abuse starting, nothing, abuse is still happening, nothing, abuse is over. So in those gaps of awareness is nothing, just a missing time. There's also the experience of, some call it floating above or floating to the corner and watching what's happening to you as an out-of-body experience. There's also some folks who develop severe disassociation where they, instead of just missing time, their brain creates an alternate reality, which could be like a safe place or a fond memory that they go to whenever trauma is happening. And severe disassociation during trauma can also lead to DID, which is dissociative identity disorder. We used to call multiple personality disorder. Other common responses to trauma are hypervigilance. So having a higher threat warning level, living as though your head's on a swivel, having an easy startle reaction, and having a high panic response to certain sensory triggers. People pleasing can be a part of a trauma response, especially if fawn is part of the trauma response, as well as avoidance of people, places, things, and the sexual trauma topic itself. There can be physical symptoms like chronic pain, gastrointestinal issues, and even sexual dysfunction. There are also emotional symptoms like depression, anxiety, guilt, shame, and rage, not to mention complex post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. Healing is not linear, but recovery can look like trying different kinds of therapies, like eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, EMDR, somatic experiencing and sensory motor therapy, internal family systems therapy, trauma-focused counseling, and trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, using narrative therapy or alternative therapies like art, drama, or equine. There can even be medical and lifestyle supports like medication for anxiety, depression, insomnia, mindfulness practices that get you in the body like yoga, doing things like journaling and attending support groups, and doing safety and boundary work to ensure that there are no abusers in your day-to-day life. You do have to remember you do not have to remember everything to heal. My apologies. Disassociation can really block our memories. So I just want to remind everyone, you do not have to remember everything to heal. You do not have to forgive to heal. You just have to feel safe again. Sexual healing after trauma. This can be very difficult, which makes perfect sense. Touch, desire, and orgasms can all feel unsafe and scary. It's good to focus on sensate focus, which is another video we offer, self-touch, body mapping, where touch feels good and where it doesn't, partner education, including couples counseling sometimes, and going over what trauma-informed consent looks like, rebuilding erotic identity slowly and gently. Let's do some affirmations here at the end. You are worthy of safety, of love, of pleasure, and of peace. You did not deserve what happened to you. You didn't do anything to bring it on. Nothing about you, your character, your personality, or the way that you moved around the world on that particular day contributed to what happened to you. You are loved. Remember to move at your own pace, and know that if you needed support after this video, please reach out. You are loved.